My wife left me a few weeks ago and admitted she had been cheating because she was bored. Now, she wants to come back. It is a messy situation, and I am just trying to make sense of it all. I am 40 years old, and she is 39. We have been married for 17 years. We have 3 daughters, aged 15, 13, and 11. We met in high school, fell in love, and have been together for about 23 years. I really do not know much right now. Here is everything I have pieced together so far. 3 days ago, my wife came home from work. She had to work on the 4th of July. When she got back, she was visibly anxious, practically shaking. She rushed upstairs, threw some clothes into an overnight bag, and walked out. I only found out because our oldest daughter was home at the time and saw the whole thing. She tried talking to her mom but ended up in tears, too upset to explain anything. She told me mom was panicking. Since then, my wife has not responded to texts or calls from me or the kids. I got in touch with her parents, and they finally answered. They told me she was safe, staying with them, and asked us to be patient and understanding. That is all they said. I reached out to her brother, sister, and one of her close co-workers. Her brother said he knew nothing. The co-worker told me my wife was at work that morning, but by lunchtime, she was gone, 3 days ago. That is all she knew. So here I am, 3 days later, with no word from her. The kids and I are just hanging in there. They keep asking what happened, where their mom is, and all I can say is that she is at Grandma and Grandpa's, and we need to wait. I keep thinking about jumping in the car with the kids and driving over there. It is only 3 hours away, and honestly, sitting here not knowing anything is unbearable. The girls think we had a big fight and are getting a divorce. That is not true. We do not really argue, and they know that. I do not know what to make of all this. Can anyone explain why someone would do this to their family? If someone had died, would your spouse not be the first person you told? Maybe something from her past resurfaced, but if that happened to me, she would be the first person I turn to. Right now, I feel like I am running in circles, trying to hold everything together without her. We are left completely in the dark. It worries me, scares me, frustrates me, you name it, I feel it. If you are listening to this, take a second and think about why someone would leave like that. Any guesses? Everyone was right. Well, you all guessed it. It was an affair. There is not much else to say. Last night was long. I did not sleep. I will tell you what I know. My father-in-law did not call me last night, so I ended up contacting the police. They performed a welfare check, just as I had considered doing earlier. It stirred up a mess, and I will not get into the details, but it turns out my wife had been cheating. At least 2 years, probably longer. It was exactly what I feared. Another man? From what I have gathered, he suffered a heart attack on Tuesday and passed away that night. My mother-in-law, and most likely, my wife's sister knew all about it and covered for her. I still have no contact from my wife, and neither does our daughter. I am doing my best to shield the kids from this, but honestly, I have no idea what to do next. That is all I know, and it is enough to break me. I have spent a lot of time thinking. Late at night when the house finally quiets down, my mind runs wild, switching from depression to rage, sometimes both at once. Sleep is rare. I walk around like a ghost during the day, running on empty. At first, I thought the affair lasted 2 years. Now I suspect it went on much longer. The man she cheated with, he had been in her life for a while. His sudden death is what unraveled everything. I am still piecing things together. My oldest daughter has been helping where she can, but there is more to this than I can fully process right now. I have met with 2 different lawyers in the past couple of days to figure out my options. I also reached out to a few therapists, but the waiting lists are long around here. I am doing what I can to follow the advice people have given me, staying away from alcohol, not that I drink anyway, trying to take care of myself, and sticking to some kind of exercise routine. I would say I have kept in decent shape for my age, but finding the motivation to work out right now feels impossible. I know people might want to know more the details of who, what, when, and why, but I am not ready to unpack all that. Every day feels like a new disaster, and right now, I just need advice on one thing: how to sleep. Even a little. That is really what this all boils down to. My wife was everything to me. My best friend since high school, the mother of my 3 beautiful daughters. We had inside jokes, silly handshakes, and now it is all gone. Just gone. I keep replaying our years together, every milestone, every laugh, and now it drags me into this pit of sadness I cannot seem to crawl out of. It paralyzes me, like none of it mattered to her, and now my future feels like a blank page. And then, of course, the anger hits. How could you? It comes in waves, and suddenly I am screaming into a pillow or punching the mattress until my hands cramp. And then it starts all over again. It is exhausting. I only fall asleep when I am completely exhausted, but even then, I wake up suddenly, and the mental spiral starts all over again. All the energy I have goes into taking care of my daughters. Now they are trying to take care of me, as if the roles have reversed. It is not fair to them. Nights are the worst. The silence and emptiness seem louder than any noise. I decided that, aside from being there for my girls, sleep needs to be my top priority. But I cannot seem to make it happen, no matter what I try. It has been a little over a week since my world flipped upside down. In that time, I found out the affair had been going on for more than 4 years. I still do not have the full timeline, but it seems likely that it started as an emotional affair and later became physical. I have wondered how the pandemic and lockdowns may have factored into this, but I may never get those answers. Yesterday, my in-laws showed up unexpectedly. They said they were visiting the kids, but after spending only 15 minutes with them, they asked to speak with me alone. It was a long conversation. They wanted to know if I planned on getting a divorce. Most of the time was spent trying to convince me to forgive my wife and attempt to repair the marriage. I could see the shame and discomfort in their eyes. It was clear they felt embarrassed by her actions, and perhaps just as clear that they wanted her out of their house. The conversation was polite and respectful, but I will admit, I lied. I told them I was not sure what my plans were, even though I have already made up my mind. I am going to file for divorce, but I did not say that. I feel like if I reveal my decision now, I will never get the truth out of her. I need her to sit across from me and explain herself, to look me in the eye and tell me everything. 17 years of marriage, 3 kids, and all the memories we built together deserve that. I want my daughters to know that I gave her the chance to be honest, to apologize, and to face this head-on. I am trying to handle this in a way that sets a good example for them. Maybe I am wrong. Legally, I cannot stop her from coming home. My lawyer made that very clear. If she decides to walk through the door, I cannot prevent it, even though I do not want her back right now. So, I set a condition, one I thought would be hard for her to meet. I told her she could return only if she sat down with me, face to face, and told me the entire truth. No avoiding, no lying. She would also have to sit down with our daughters, apologize, and answer their questions. I thought that was fair since they already know the truth. Again, she can come back at any time and does not have to agree to this, but if she avoids the confrontation, maybe that will give me some breathing room. I do not think that makes me manipulative. I just need time to figure things out. There is a mandatory 90-day waiting period for divorce in our state. I am using that time to stabilize my mental and emotional health as much as possible. She has been texting the girls, telling them she does not want a divorce and apologizing constantly. They showed me the messages. She asks about me every day. From what I can tell, she is starting to realize the full weight of her actions, especially over the past few days. I do not know how to handle this. Is my condition unreasonable? It feels like she might return sooner than I thought. I feel ready to move forward. I have known this day was coming. I just want to make the best decision for my daughters first and myself second. Yesterday, my wife came home. I asked for a divorce. It was an awful weekend. The entire week felt like a countdown to her arrival. In the past, when she walked through the door, I would greet her with a hug and a kiss. This time, the air felt heavy and strange. She approached me, tried to hug me before saying anything, but I stepped back like nothing happened. Once she settled in, I asked her to explain everything. She repeated what she had said on the phone earlier in the week, that she was not ready to talk. I reminded her that the only condition for her return was honesty. I told her if she loved her family, she needed to explain why she had been gone for almost 3 weeks. She just sat there, repeating that she was not ready. It took everything I had not to yell. I took deep breaths, trying to stay calm, but I still lost it. After what felt like forever, I blurted out that I knew everything, the affair, the length of it, and that she had planned to leave us for him. I told her she had abandoned her family for more than 4 years, and now she was standing there, unable to fulfill the one condition I had asked for. I told her I wanted a divorce. And that is when things got strange. Her whole demeanor shifted. Her posture stiffened, and her face twisted in confusion. It was as if she had not expected me to know as much as I did. She stared at me with wide eyes, then dropped her gaze to the floor and stood there, completely still. I was ready for anything. Tears, shouting, maybe even accusations trying to pin her affair on me. I expected some grand confession, or at least an attempt to explain herself. But instead, I got silence. It was the strangest moment I have ever experienced. She had no words, and honestly, neither did I. I had prepared for this confrontation. I read everything I could about situations like mine, made notes, even sat in front of the mirror and rehearsed different scenarios. But I never imagined this, the absence of any reaction at all. So, I decided to lay it all out. I told her everything I knew about the affair. Maybe it was foolish, but I started walking her through the details, how she met him, her sister's involvement, the pandemic lockdowns. I even threw in some of my assumptions. She just kept staring at the floor. The more I spoke, the angrier I became. Her silence felt like a slap in the face. But I fought to keep my voice steady, determined not to lose control. After I had said all I could, there was another long, awkward pause. I let the anger settle, and sadness washed over me. Softly, I asked the questions that had been haunting me for weeks. What did I do to push you away? Did you ever really love me? Was he worth it? Nothing. She did not flinch. She just stood there with her head down. No tears, no apology, no yelling. Nothing. It hurt more than the day I found out. I stood there frozen, staring at her, unsure what to do next. And then things got worse. Of course, our daughters had been listening. I felt like an idiot for not realizing it sooner. I had spent the past few weeks pouring everything into them, keeping their lives as stable as possible. But the second my wife and I were face to face, I lost sight of them. Our oldest daughter stormed down the stairs, tears streaming, and started yelling. All that anger she had been holding in finally came out. My wife ran upstairs and locked herself in our bedroom. I could hear her crying for most of the night. I eventually drifted off from pure exhaustion, but not before our youngest tried to talk to her. The older two avoided her completely. I am considering asking her to stay with her sister until the divorce is finalized. This is still her house, but the thought of living under the same roof feels unbearable. I was wrong about my wife. I was wrong about everything. Our years together, the memories, the milestones. I truly believed she would fall to her knees and beg for forgiveness. I was convinced she would confess to everything and try to ease her guilt by telling the truth. This is the same woman who once drove 20 minutes back to a farmer's market because she realized the vendor had given her an extra $10 in change. But apparently, we were not worth that level of honesty. I was not worth it. Maybe I never was. Now what? The house feels heavy today. The girls and I are trying to carry on like we have for the past few weeks, but it is different. It is obvious now. I just want to fast forward through all of this, past the divorce, the awkward conversations, the inevitable arguments, and the constant heaviness. I know some of you have lived with an unfaithful spouse during the divorce process. How did you manage, especially with children involved? I understand this is just the beginning, but the idea of enduring this for months feels unbearable. The kids start school long before this will be over, and I feel like this is my life now, stuck in limbo. It hit me hard tonight. I broke down. I have been in a terrible place since the day she came home, pretending to keep it together for the girls. I tried to say the right things, think the right thoughts. But tonight, I need to admit the truth. I am struggling. I know people say grief comes in waves, but tonight felt like a tsunami. The divorce paperwork has been filed, but she has not hired a lawyer yet. I am trying to stay patient and civil. I am hoping for a straightforward divorce without a drawn-out battle. But after tonight, I am not sure that will happen. We have been living under the same roof for weeks. She stays with her sister on weekends, leaves Friday, and comes back Sunday night. Her job is close to home, while her sister lives about an hour away. It is a fragile system. I thought I could handle it, But tonight I am not so sure. The last couple of weeks have fallen into a routine of avoidance. The girls and I try to live our normal lives, while my wife mostly keeps to herself. In the evenings, there are occasional interactions, small talk here and there, but nothing significant, and certainly nothing with our oldest daughter. She has not spoken to her mother at all, not since the big arguments they had. I have been following a lot of the advice I have read, trying to keep my cool when dealing with my wife. It takes everything I have. I stay short and indifferent in conversation, but remain polite and respectful until tonight. For the past few Fridays, she has come home from work, packed a few things, and left for her sister's before I returned. But tonight was different. She was waiting for me in the kitchen when I got home. I tried to walk right past her, but she gently grabbed my hand and asked if I was really going to keep treating her this way, all because she was not ready to talk about the affair. That was the first time she even acknowledged it. The girls were not home, and something in me snapped. I let it all out, every hurt, every wound, every ounce of anger, suffering, and despair I had buried inside. I have no idea how long I talked. I lost track of time. I raised my voice. I got loud. I was emotional. I broke. I told her how broken I was, how much agony I carried every single day. I could write 4,000 words trying to capture everything I said, and it still would not come close. Once I started, I could not stop. And yes, I cried. I hated myself for it. Damn it. She got to me. I let her get to me. I saw it coming a mile away, and I still fell into the trap. This has been festering for so long. Sure, I hit the gym and worked some of it out there, but it is not enough. Eventually, you hit a wall. But something happened I was not expecting. She broke too. For the first time since all of this started, she completely fell apart. She sobbed uncontrollably, ugly, messy crying. Between gasps, all she could say was, "I am so sorry," over and over again. And I hate to admit it, but seeing her like that gave me a twisted sense of satisfaction. I wanted to feel indifferent, but part of me felt almost relieved, like she was finally feeling even a fraction of what I had been carrying. Eventually, I walked out of the kitchen. I left her there crying and asked her to leave me alone. She stayed in the kitchen for a while, then left for her sister's house again. The girls came home about half an hour later. They knew something had happened. It was impossible to hide. But I was not ready to explain, and I still do not think they need to know the details. The two younger girls seem to be doing better lately, and I do not want to disrupt that. Telling our oldest would just pour gasoline on the fire, and I do not want that either. I hate all of this. I just hate it. I should have kept walking. I should have brushed it off and left her standing there. Now, looking back, I wonder if she was actually trying to open the door to talk about the affair. If this was her way of testing the waters. Maybe she could not get the words out, and I exploded before she could take the conversation further. I am starting to worry about her. I know some people will say she deserves whatever she is feeling, and maybe that is true. But she is still the mother of my kids, and she is still a person. She has isolated herself. Everyone has turned their back on her. I do not want something bad to happen to her. I know it sounds ridiculous. I am disappointed in myself, really, truly disappointed. I called my brother again tonight and let everything spill out, just like before. I know this is turning into one long confession, but honestly, it helps. I felt lighter after confronting her, but now the guilt is creeping in. Should I send her a message or just leave things alone? My head is a mess. We have all started therapy, and while it is something, it feels like a drop in the ocean. This whole situation feels impossible. This week has been brutal. If anything, this week pulled me deeper into the pit. I wanted to take a step back and disconnect, but instead, everything spiraled. She has been relentless, overly sweet, constantly apologizing, and smothering me with attention. She knocks on my door at night, trying to talk. I ignored her when I could, but sometimes I gave in. Wednesday night, I snapped. I told her to leave me alone. And then last night happened. It has been just over a month since she came back, and now we are stuck in this uncomfortable rhythm, coexisting but not really living. Last night, after the girls went to bed, she came to my room again. This time, something felt different. She admitted that she had confessed everything to her sister, but decided to bury the truth instead of telling me. According to her, She cut things off with him shortly after the affair began. But when restrictions lifted, he reached out, and she let him back into her life. By the time she returned to work, it had become physical again. She told me she tried to end it out of guilt, multiple times, but kept going back. It never really stopped. She laid it all out, reading from 5 handwritten pages detailing the affair, the lies about weekend trips, fake business meetings, and excuses about family emergencies or errands. I sat there listening, realizing just how much of my life had been built on deception. I trusted her completely. I never questioned any of it. Hearing the full truth was worse than I imagined. Yet, she insisted her feelings for me never faded. She was not distant or withdrawn like I had read in other stories. Our closeness never disappeared, at least not enough for me to notice. But she admitted to falling in love with him. He was older, divorced, and promised her things: trips, gifts, an escape from the responsibilities of family life. She admitted she fantasized about leaving everything behind. She told me all of this through tears, open and emotional, and for the first time, I believed she was being honest. Halfway through her confession, I broke. I cried. It was impossible not to. When she finished, I told her I had known her for most of my life, long enough to know when she was lying. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I was just grasping at anything to stay grounded. But it did not matter anymore. I stayed calmer than the week before, but I still lost control. I told her some hard truths, like how she was just another name to him, one of many. That seemed to hit her the hardest. A flood of thoughts raced through my head, things I could have said to hurt her more, ways I could have made her feel the same pain I felt. But I did not. There was one question I could not let go of. If he were still alive, and she had to choose between him and me, who would she pick? She hesitated. She mumbled that the question was unfair. I pressed harder. Eventually, she said she would have chosen me. I told her that hesitation was why I wanted a divorce, because I knew she was lying. She broke down crying again. The conversation ended there. We sat in silence for a while. Finally, I told her we were divorcing, but for the sake of the girls, we needed to stay civil and co-parent the best we could. I told her that after everything she put me through, I hoped she could at least handle the divorce with honesty and decency. If she could do that, maybe I could believe she truly loved me at some point. Before I left the car, I leaned over, kissed her on the forehead, and told her I would love her forever. Then I walked inside and went to bed. I couldn't sleep last night, and I know tonight won't be any different. I have no idea what to do now. At least her chance to contest the divorce has passed. So there's that, something small to hold on to. But I haven't talked to my lawyer yet. I feel stuck in this cycle of crying, depression, and anger. Hearing the full truth from her crushed me, and honestly, I wonder if I would have been better off not knowing. Maybe ignorance really is bliss. Could she have lied about some of it? Maybe. But her story fit perfectly with everything I had pieced together over the past month. It feels endless. Some days, I start to feel stronger, but then something brings it all crashing down again. Time feels warped, like I've been stuck in this for months, but it has only been days. I will try to sleep, but I doubt it will come easily. Imagine the love of your life, the only woman you have ever kissed, ever loved, telling you she cheated for over 4 years. Not because she fell out of love, not because there was distance or a lack of intimacy, but simply because she was bored. I don't know if that makes it worse or better. Thank you for listening. Getting out of bed each morning feels like a battle. The house is so quiet now. The reality of these past months is finally sinking in. I feel like Andy Dufresne from The Shawshank Redemption, standing in the path of a hurricane, waiting for it to pass. I know it's just a movie, but that's how my life feels. No joy, no hope, just a massive crater where my heart used to be. I've been holding it together for my daughters since I found out, pushing through the grief, the painful weeks of living under the same roof as her, and the confessions that came after. But now she's gone, and I can't pretend to be strong anymore. Some days, I can barely move, but I know I have to keep going for them. I replay that last conversation in my head over and over, regretting every word, wishing I could go back and say something different. Anything. The last thing I said to her was, "I love you and always will, but I never want to see you again." I was hurt, vulnerable, and exhausted by the endless apologies and explanations. I meant every word in that moment, and life, like some cruel joke, gave me exactly what I asked for. Now she's gone, and the girls will have to live without their mother. Strangely, they seem to be handling it well. My oldest has taken on the role of caretaker, making sure I eat, watching movies with me on weekends. I am so grateful for her strength. The younger two seem to be settling back into normal life, school, sports, and everything that comes with it. That brings me some peace. My mom and brother have been supportive, but every day still feels like a struggle. We are all in therapy, and the girls seem to like it. For me, it feels pointless. Too much guilt, too much sadness. I go because my oldest insists. I am a Christian, and I have been reading the book of Job, trying to hold on to my faith, but I am failing. I want to scream. It feels so unfair. I thought I was a good husband, a good father. I tried to do the right thing, to live morally and treat people well. Yet here I am, broken and overwhelmed by despair. I feel exhausted and hollow, filled with nothing but pity for myself. Life is unfair. Life is hard. I know that. I just do not know if I have the strength to make it through this storm. What do you do when you hit rock bottom? If you are listening, take a moment to think about that. It is hard to accept that you can do everything right and still end up here. That is life, I suppose. But even in the darkest times, I try to remember. Each morning is a chance to start again, to take even the smallest step forward. Thank you for being here.